Within this lesson, we're going to talk about JavaScript and how to work with various numbers in JavaScript. So in the previous lessons, we looked at functions, setting some values for the numbers, and sending those over into JavaScript. We also looked at a short form for doing increments, so adding 1. We can also do subtracting, so this is subtracting 1, this is adding 1. We've also got some, besides these basic calculations, so I could always do something instead of a plus b, I could go a times b. Just quickly show you what that's going to look like when I go into the console. So now I get 350 every time it's 350 because we're doing a multiplication. We can also do division and so on. So there's quite a lot of options there that we can do with our JavaScript. So that's just right off the bat basic calculations. So we also have included within JavaScript what's called the math object. And the math object allows us to do more complex calculations as well as bring in complex numbers. So if we did something like a divided by b, or maybe I should do b times 3 divided by a, or something like that. So see what happens here when I go out and I refresh it. So I get this number with, I get this integer with a whole bunch of decimal point and a whole bunch of numbers after that. So built in to JavaScript, there's actually a way to solve that. And to bring it up, we can do something like math ceiling. And this gives us the ability to reformulate this number and bring the integer over into the greatest number that's passed in the argument. So instead of being a 3.5, we get a 6. So it brings it up to the ceiling. So we could also do something like floor. So if I can change this to instead of ceiling, so what do you think floor is going to do? So if ceiling brings it up to the max, think about if we had a floor and we had 5.3, I think it was 5.3, 5, and floor is going to pull it all the way down to the floor and give us an actual real number without decimal places. So quite a few options there that we do have with JavaScript. We also have what's called a pseudo random number generator. So this is another really cool thing that we can do with JavaScript, and this brings in even more dynamics. So if I had something like variable e and I did math random, so math random, and I'm gonna just console log out that value of e. We're going to notice that every time we get a different value for e. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually multiply the whole thing by e. So see how that turns out. Take a look at this, refresh. So we get a value for e of this, and so this really doesn't make a lot of sense as a random number, 0 to 1, having this decimal place. But when we actually start bringing together some additional mathematics in there, so if we multiplied it by 1,000 and we use something like math ceiling, now we're going to get a number all the way up to 1,000. So this is going to apply some additional calculations and return a number, I believe, from 0 to 1,000, so 335, 679, 41, and we see that we get a whole bunch of series of random numbers. So if you want something random to happen on your page, this is a great way to set that up within your calculations. So up next, we're going to talk about strings and discuss what we can do with strings. There's also, just like the math, there's some built-in functionality within JavaScript where we can work with the string values and manipulate them. So that's coming up in the next lesson.